everyone, and welcome to the Foretop. I want to thank everyone who's here right now because I understand there's a live Q&A with the Welcome to Night Vale people going on, and so the fact that there's more than one person in this room is just really gratifying. Thank you for being here. And I have some freebies for you, some swag after the show, so come on up after we're done recording. The Foretop is a roundtable discussion of the hot button topics in food and beverage culture. I am your host, Catherine Cole, and I am joined today by some very, very impressive people. Right here we have Molly Wizenberg, author of the books Delancey and A Homemade Life, creator of the Orangette blog, owner of the Seattle restaurants Delancey and Essex, and co-host of the Spilled Milk podcast, which you all should listen to, because it's far more entertaining than the Foretop.
No.
Hey, Molly, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And comedian and writer Matthew Amster-Burton is the co-host of the Spilled Milk podcast, and he's also the author of 5 books, working on his 6th, and I'm happy to report that 4 of his books are about food, and you should read them all. Thanks for being here, Matthew.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And we have Paul Clarke here, who is the executive editor of Imbibe magazine and the author of The Cocktail Chronicles. Thanks for being here, Paul.
Thanks for having me, Catherine.
So typically we're kind of a nerdy show, but today, since we're here at PodCon...
No nerdy people up here.
No. We're going to go with kind of a looser format than usual and just kind of riff about beverages, since we have Paul here, probably one of the nation's foremost beverage experts. And, you know, Molly and Matthew, your podcast is called Spilled Milk, so I'm just going to go with that. So I brought I have a new book out right now. It's called Rosé All Day. So I brought some rosé for everyone to taste. This is from the Canary Islands, which are tropical islands off Morocco. And the winemaking there is very interesting, and this is a delicious wine. And our third topic today is going to be your desert island beverage. So I thought I'd bring a desert island wine.
Yeah, and let the record show that these paper cups and these wine glasses both contain wine.
Yes.
It's afternoon.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Oh, yeah, no, it's after 2 p.m.
Yeah,
so.
We're good. All right, well, let's bite into our first course, drinks that died. I think we all fondly remember a drink or two from our childhood that has disappeared, and we wonder where it's gone, and I think we need to talk about them. So, Matthew Amster-Burton, for those youngsters here in the audience, can you talk about Orbits? What was Orbits?
Oh, for sure. So I think I only actually drank this one time, but Orbits was this Canadian soda that had these little jellied bits floating in it and looked basically like a lava lamp. And the idea was, I think the idea was it was one of these things that you will buy once. And I think dumb people like me bought it once, and then nobody else ever bought it, and it was discontinued very quickly. But I remember vividly that they sold it. I was a UW student at the time. They sold it at the bookstore in the Student Union building on the University of Washington campus. And I saw this thing, and I'm like, oh, I have to try this. This is the thing that everyone's talking about. It kind of just tasted like flat soda. You couldn't really... You knew that the bubbles were in there, the little jelly nubs going down your throat, and probably
Was it like bubble tea in soda form?
It wasn't bubble tea because they had no texture. It was like swallowing a gel cap over and over, but with no psychoactive effect. And I have to figure those things didn't really digest, but maybe we should stop the story there.
Paul, down there, do you have any favorite drinks that no longer exist, drinks that died?
Well, you know, we were talking in our email earlier about things like Snapple or the original New York Seltzer. And as a child of the 80s, I have fond remembrance of both of those. I mean, the original New York Seltzer, this was kind of like the first mature drink that I had. I remember being 18 years old and in college and like ready to move on from Mountain Dew and buying original New York Seltzer. I mean, they were in Kool-Aid flavors like black cherry and stuff like that. So it wasn't really all that mature, but it was clear. And it had, you know, nowhere nowhere near the amount of sugar that you get in a normal soda. So, it was that feeling of sophistication and of really kind of stepping up and out into the world. I was always kind of wondering for years, wherever did New York Seltzer go?
And now it's back.
Exactly. It's back in our universe. And so somewhere out there, there are 18-year-olds. We're probably looking at it and going, this is not Mountain Dew, and that's good.
It was like an accessory.
How is it different? So one thing that I was going to mention was Clearly Canadian.
Yes.
Do you remember that? It was the same era. And actually, so I first discovered Clearly Canadian.
Oh, you're the one who discovered it.
I first discovered Clearly Canadian at the New York Bagel Shop in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, my very worldly hometown. And it was so incredibly, the packaging was really, it would have been very at home on the shelves in 2017. It was like very minimal with this like really beautiful, elegant typeface. And it just said like Clearly Canadian, like naturally essenced sparkling water. Basically said sort of what LaCroix says, minus the big word innocent that they like to put all over LaCroix. But anyway, I thought Clearly Canadian was so sophisticated, and now it's gone.
I feel like that was at a time when Canadian wasn't a word that stood in for like everything that's good in the world. It was really ahead of its time.
I don't know if Canadian stands in for everything that's good in the world to anyone but you. I was at Matthew's house the other day, and we were, I am now. Matthew's convinced me. I was at his house the other day, and he had a whole bag full of cookie cutters, and you had not one but 2 maple leaves. Matthew's very, very pro-Canada.
Okay, maybe I have a problem.
I'm hearing a recurring theme, which is the drink is sort of an accessory that says something about you. And I remember, I don't remember if I ever actually could have it because I was too young and my parents were too healthy. But I always wanted Tab Cola because I would see those advertisements of those glamorous women, and I had crooked teeth and a bowl haircut, and I wanted to be one of those glamorous Tab Cola models and carry that
can was pink.
Yeah. Yeah.
My grandmother drank Tab. That's what I associate it with. She is still alive. She is 100 years old, and possibly, I guess they don't make Tab anymore. If they brought back Tab, she would be first in line.
I think it's back, and I think
I'll let her know.
I just want to say, in Spain, they have a higher caffeine version, and it's called Tab Fabulous. And I just want to walk around with a can that says Tab Fabulous on it. 'Cause that just
why not Tabulous?
Oh, that could be good. Yeah.
That's why.
Good one, Matthew. Yeah.
Molly, have I seen Mexican Coke on your menus? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes. So at Delancey, which is a restaurant that I own in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle, we have Mexican Coke. And part of it is it just, like, because it has actual cane sugar in it, it really does taste a little bit different from regular American Coke, which, at least as far as I know, still has high fructose corn syrup in it. Anyway, it just tastes better. No fancy reason except that it tastes better.
Yeah, I don't understand that Coke seems to roll out a new product every year with a different name and different branding.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just bring back Coke in a glass bottle, and that's all you need to do.
Just bring back new Coke.
New
the
old
one
Coke.
we fondly remember.
All right, Paul, I want to hear about some cocktails that have died or some good alcoholic beverages that have died.
Well, I think, the cocktails seem to be kind of more in almost like a Buddhist cycle, where we see entire generations of cocktails that die, that move on, that you think you'll never hear from again, and then 30 years later, they're back. So, for example, in the 1950s, there was a survey done of New York bartenders where the 50 most popular cocktails they were serving, and it had things like, the Alexander, which had gin and creme de cacao, or the Dubonnet cocktail, which nobody remembers anymore, or the Jack Rose with apple brandy. And those were like among the biggest drinks in the early 1950s. And of course, all of those just kind of, died, fell by the wayside as we got into the 60s and everybody was into things other than alcohol. And then we got into the era of the Harvey Wallbanger and the Pina Colada. So it wasn't until like in the last 10 or 15 years that we've seen that generation revived. And things like the Harvey Wallbanger and the frozen daiquiri and all of those kinds of gewgaw 1980s and 90s drinks fall by the wayside. And now those drinks are back. So it's this, it's the ongoing circle of life that we're seeing in the cocktail world where nothing is truly dead. You can either view it in very positive terms like that, or think of them just as zombies, where none of them truly die.
Do you think they're going to bring back orbits?
Oh, I think it may be only a matter of time. I mean, there is a market somewhere in the world where this is probably, hotter than ever.
Yeah.
I as a kid, back when I was drinking Clearly Canadian, I thought that when I was an adult that what I would drink was a Long Island iced tea, because this was like the late 80s, and I feel like that was still the drink that you like. I don't know where I even heard people talking about this. My dad was like a Scotch on the rocks man, definitely not a Long Island iced tea drinker, but I happened upon this YouTube video the other day that was like a profile of the bartender who supposedly created the Long Island iced tea. Have you seen this? So his name is Bob Butt, B-U-T-T. And his nickname is Rosebud. So Rosebud Butt. And this is for real. You can look this up. He was a bartender at like the Ocean Beach Inn in Long Island or something. And apparently there was a triple sec competition. And so basically he had this bright idea as his entry in the competition to take like an ounce of each clear liquid on his station. So like vodka, gin, tequila, etc.
So he was like 12 years old at the time,
He was
right?
12 years old, yeah. Anyway, plus triple sec. And then he put in sour mix, and then he added Coca-Cola for color. And apparently he's the inventor of the Long Island iced tea. And anyway, so by the time I became an adult, nobody was drinking Long Island iced teas anymore, including me. I've never had one, and I don't feel bad about it.
I thought it was actually made with iced tea.
Really? I remember as a kid being told it's made with everything. And I thought there was even like milk in there. Like everything, every conceivable beverage I knew of as a child was going to show up in this cocktail. And then by the time I was 21, it was gone.
I remember right around the time when I turned 21, it was still like that mystical beverage, like, oh, be careful, there's a Long Island iced tea. This thing will take you to another planet. And during a very brief period of time when I was, right after I became of legal drinking age, hey, I knew something to order, and it would, you were getting your money's worth.
So
definitely.
you've had one?
I had one. Okay, so I had one in my early 20s.
Just one,
when
and
there
that
was
was all
still
you
such a
needed.
thing. Well, that's another story. But in my early 20s, but now, within the last few years, it has been possible to go into a craft cocktail bar and get a craft Long Island iced tea. I think that Cannon here in Seattle had one a few years ago on their menu. A bar in San Francisco, one of the upscale group of the Bourbon and Branch bars, had a bottled Long Island iced tea, all made with premium ingredients and balanced out by craft cocktail potential.
Okay, so it's craft, which just means it has a giant ice cube, right?
Well, exactly, and it costs $18. But it's all balanced out, aiming for the palate of people who are going in for their Negroni or whatever, and on a lark get a Long Island iced tea, and it still has those kind of familiar flavors, and oh, isn't this kind of fun?
When I was a kid, my dad used to give me sips of his beer. And to sort of try and develop my palate. I don't remember any of the beers specifically. He would get a different beer every week because he was that kind of nerdy dad. The one I specifically remember was Watney's Red Barrel, which this was his favorite, I think, and introduced it to me as this is a special beer. This is from England. This is Watney's Red Barrel, and I remember it had a barrel on the label, and I thought, wow, this is what I'm going to drink when I grow up is Watney's Red Barrel. A few years ago, it occurred to me to Google Watney's Red Barrel and determined A, they don't make it anymore, and B, it was a sub Budweiser light lager that was not worth drinking even in the 80s. But so ruined that childhood memory.
I just want to do, before we got to switch on to our next topic, but I just want to do a little quick shout out before we move on to White Zinfandel. I don't know if you all know, White Zin is a sweet kind of rosé that ruined rosé for a whole generation of drinkers. But Sutter Home, the winery that invented it, their peak production was 1987, 2 million cases. They still sell 2 million cases a year of Sutter Home White Zin. So I don't know who's buying it, but I think it's pretty amazing that it's still going so strong. Mm-hmm. Well, now let's transition to our second course, and it's closely related to our first course. Drinks that will die or should die. Paul Clarke, you see every drink. It's part of your work. What are you just so tired of? What needs to be retired?
You know, we see so many things and so many ill-considered notions come through the drinks world that I feel bad picking on one, but I will. And one of those is shrubs. Now, let me say,
what's a shrub?
Okay, so a shrub basically it's an old-fashioned way of preserving fruit. So you take a fruit, you know, whether it's berries or peaches or what have you, and you mix it basically with sugar and vinegar in some kind of solution, so that it takes a way of kind of capturing that fruit flavor and a lot of the fruit characteristics and making it, you know, something that had kind of a sweetness, kind of a tartness to it that you could then serve it, mix it, do whatever you wanted to do with it. Now, I need to say I'm not against all shrubs necessarily, but things have gotten out of hand. I was an early advocate of these things. I loved shrubs early on, but now they are so ubiquitous on bar menus that you look at a cocktail list and there are shrubs and half a dozen drinks on there, and you think, I don't want to be drinking vinegar in every single option that I have presented to me tonight. So I still like some of the shrubs, and I think as a non-alcoholic option, you know, to have a couple on a restaurant menu, fantastic, great way to go. But the over ubiquity of it, just the excessiveness of the shrubs is really kind of appealing to me to push back a little bit against.
And no one knows what the word shrub means.
I know. Just at a time when people are figuring out what it is, I'm saying, all right, enough already.
No, Paul, I liked it when you said I'm not against all shrubs, because I heard that in the voice of Grandpa Simpson.
I like boxwood, you know. Molly, as a restaurant owner, what beverages are you tired of seeing?
Well, this doesn't have to do with the restaurant, but so I feel like I keep seeing ads in print for LaCroix's cola flavor, which I sometimes see referred to as Nicola and sometimes as La Cola. I'm very, very confused. It even says both on the actual can. But anyway, a friend of mine gave me one of these, and she was very excited that she had found them in the market. It was like this new thing she was super excited about, and it's supposed to be LaCroix, sparkling water, but that tastes like a cola. And it was so weird. I don't understand why this is, like, I think people are genuinely excited about it. I thought it was really weird. And
the whole LaCroix thing is weird. Can we just go off on a tangent on that?
That's what I was going to talk about.
I mean, I like the LaCroix thing, but I have to say I think 90% of it just is the packaging. The packaging, like, it totally captures the whole, like, 80s thing that's going on right now. It's
it breaks every rule of graphic design. It's like the worst design.
I love it.
Okay, Matthew, you have feelings about LaCroix.
The packaging is like a cross between like a Nagel print and a leotard, kind of, right? I just like that we're, and I drink it sometimes too, but it's like we're 3 years from now, everyone's going to be sitting around and be like, you know, remember 3 years ago when we were all drinking lightly flavored sparkling water for some reason? That was weird. And then we're going to all take our sips of our sparkling yogurt or whatever is the thing then and be like, you know, this is the real stuff. Molly brought over a bunch of LaCroix to my house a few weeks ago.
For a tasting
for our podcast. And then when she came back like a week later, she was surprised that I hadn't finished all of it off yet. She's like, you still have this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I can't drink 6 cans of sparkling water a day.
I can.
Yeah.
and you know somewhere that like the founders of the original New York Seltzer going, oh, that could have been us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what I miss about the New York Seltzer? Can we jump back to that for a second? Do you remember how the label on the New York Seltzer bottles was sort of a little bit styrofoamy?
Yeah,
and
so you could like peel it off.
Yes,
really
totally
satisfying.
peel it off.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some more drinks that'll die. I have to say, I'm just going to admit that I am one of those crazy people who likes the taste of stevia, that artificial sweetener. So I drink that, I don't know if it's Zevia or Zevia soda, and every time I have a guest over, they taste it, and they're like, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted. Why are you drinking?
Which flavor do you like?
I like the grapefruit. I think the ginger ale is really good. It's like very gingery. I don't know. I think I need to be cured of this illness.
How would you describe the flavor as compared to sugar?
Less intense, and to be honest, I think stevia is like cilantro, where you're into it or you're not, because other people tell me it tastes like tinfoil, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. So yeah. Come on. Let's hear some more drinks that need to die.
I have not had it, but I have a friend who's constantly drinking it.
Yeah.
I've always thought of the flavor of stevia. Anyway, I always thought it just it tasted like the sweetness of sugar, but it like kind of stayed like at the front of my mouth in a funny way.
Yeah, it's horrible. I admit it.
It's horrible and it's wonderful.
It's horrible and wonderful.
And I mean, there are also some kinds of categories of drinks that really need to kind of be stopped before they get too far, before they even get off the ground. And one of those, from in my opinion, is weed cocktails. You see it out there increasingly, especially as weed is legalized across the country, but where cannabis makes its way into a cocktail in some form. I mean, it's a bad idea both from a flavor perspective. I mean, if you have crafted this lovely little cocktail, now do you want to throw a bud in there and really kind of have that flavor come through? But also just from a perception standpoint, you're dealing with all kinds of things from dosage rates to the kind of strength of the drink that you have into it, where it's that big kind of magic 8 ball that can turn up in a really bad way. Yeah. But I mean, this is something that we see taking off. I mean, just 2 months ago, Constellation Brands, which is one of the beverage mega companies that owns things like Corona and Svedka Vodka, they just bought a minority stake in a Canadian company, Canopy Growth, with the idea of planning cannabis beverages, planning on full legalization and seeing where this goes. So it's one of those things that we've legalized weed here in Washington. You do in Oregon as well. It's not saying anything about that, but church and state, apples and oranges. Let's keep to your lane, cannabis.
Yeah, that just sounds like a death wish. I
kind of feel the same way about coffee cocktails. I mean, for one thing, I kind of feel like, when am I supposed to drink this?
Right.
Because I'm generally, I like, today aside, I generally try to wait to start drinking alcohol till like 5 p.m.-ish. And I don't want to have coffee then. So I kind of wonder, I know coffee cocktails are quite
You sound
popular.
like such a grown-up right now.
I sound like a terrible grown-up. I'm the worst kind of grown-up.
It's both an upper and a downer.
Yeah, I'm like, when am I supposed to drink this?
Yeah, it kind of cancels itself out.
Yeah.
No, one that I think should die, but not because it's bad, is Molly and I recently tasted a bunch of cold brew, like packaged cold brew coffee products.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them was the Stumptown cold brew coffee with chocolate and cream, which basically tasted like melted coffee ice cream. And this was a product that I had walked past, sort of sidled past a bunch of times, looking at it like, boy, this looks really good. It's full of caffeine, it's full of sugar, and it costs $3. I should not buy it. This could be a problem. And this morning, I finished off the last of it by pouring it on some cereal. And
oh my God.
So it may be a problem. So if we could get that pulled off the market.
Just for Matthew.
Thank you.
Well, caffeine, what about energy drinks? I can't believe those haven't been pulled off the market yet. And yet another teenager died, I think, in May in South Carolina from chugging, I think, a Red Bull, a McDonald's latte, and some other horribly caffeinated drink within 1 hour, and had a heart attack in art class and dropped dead. What's the deal with these drinks?
Well, going back to our first point, I remember in the 80s when Jolt Cola was first introduced, which had twice the caffeine of your normal cola. And I was, like a college freshman or something at the time, and I thought, that is the best idea ever. And then you have it, and you realize your heart is racing halfway through sociology class, and maybe it was a terrible idea. So, we have seen things like, Four Loko take a lump for having these kind of excessive levels of caffeine. But, on their own, energy drinks are just a huge market. I don't really see it slowing down. I don't really see regulators doing much about it, even with incidents like these.
And they taste mostly quite bad. I guess that's my grown-up moment, but I tasted a bunch of them for a podcast, and Red Bull, kind of good. The rest of the ones we tasted, pretty bad.
I was surprised by how I love sour candies, sour gummies, and sweet tarts, and those things like Warheads or something that come in a roll, like sweet tarts. I couldn't believe how many of these energy drinks had that flavor profile, Warhead flavor profile. They're onto something, I think, in terms of getting that flavor.
Are people doing...
I'm tempted to buy it sometimes just for the flavor.
Yeah. Are people doing cocktails with energy drinks? They must be. I'm not saying I approve.
The vodka Red Bull thing has long been the mainstay of the nightclub crowd. I think in most places on the cocktail circuit they're heavily looked down upon because again it's one of those things where you're tossing another variable into the mix. Once you add a hyperdose of caffeine to somebody who's already had a couple of drinks, then you have somebody who's going to become a problem in your bar. So you see most bartenders trying to stay away from that. Plus, back to the flavor side, it just sucks. So you really want to take this wonderful American whiskey or French brandy and mix it with something as crappy, something that tastes like warheads.
A liquefied warhead.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really see much of appeal for it on that side. But then again, I don't hang out with 19-year-olds on the club circuit. So what do I know?
Really? Paul, can you address the problem of these cross-promotional beers that have been coming out the last couple of years? There's a Jelly Belly beer. Have you heard about this? The Dunkin' Donuts Pumpkin Spice beer. And let me look at my notes. Oh, the New Belgium Ben & Jerry's Cookie Dough beer.
Just this morning, I was doing my grocery shopping for the week, and Trader Joe's has introduced a JoJo's beer. No. And JoJo's is, Trader Joe's kind of knockoff of Oreos. So it's I don't recall if it's a stout, but it's some kind of heavy beer with that big kind of chocolatey aspect to it.
Does it have like dregs at the bottom?
I wonder, do you have to get down? Is there like a cream coating on the bottom once you get down to it? But it's a way to obviously kind of capture attention and make one sales circuit of beers, and then a lot of times you'll just never see that again. In the marketplace, people have gone for crazier things, so I can understand how it happens. I don't like it, and there's no way you can actually kind of put your foot down on it though.
Have you tasted any of these?
I have in the past, and honestly, sometimes you come across things that are surprisingly good. Like about a year or two ago, there was this phenomenon with like peanut or peanut butter stout going around, and I thought it just sounded terrible. But Josh Bernstein, who writes our beer work for us at Imbibe, said, "No, actually, you got to check them out. There are actually some good ones out there." So I saw some at a beer shop here in Seattle. Got a glass, drank it, and this was actually pretty good. You can kind of see like how peanut goes with the whole kind of stout thing. The whole kind of like putting chocolate cookies in there and cream filling and stuff like that, no, that's over the top though. I don't go there.
What happened to church and state, right? All right, any more drinks that should die, or should we move to our third course?
I can't believe I missed that peanut butter stout. I feel like for me, peanut butter is the thing you can put on the label of your food, and I will definitely buy it no matter how stupid it is. So if you see one of those, let me know.
One other cocktail trend that should die, I think, is now it's kind of very much in vogue to have a black cocktail, to have just like a jet black cocktail from using activated charcoal in it, which does a couple of things. I mean, like I've had these, and it's like, okay, it doesn't really do much flavor-wise to contribute to this drink. You wind up with kind of like a grit in your teeth at the end. But also, there is actually like a medical aspect why you should not be doing this, because activated charcoal has this property with things like birth control pills or antidepressants, where it suppresses their use in your body. So if you're knocking back a couple of these and you find yourself pregnant a few months later, there could conceivably be a relationship. So it's like one of those things where, if people aren't ordinarily using this in food, why are you putting it in the drink?
Oh, it seems like a terrible idea.
Yeah. So, if you really, really have to have a black cocktail on your menu, use squid ink or something that's not going to mess with somebody's system.
Definitely use squid ink.
Actually, you just reminded me, there's a blue wine, and I think it's because of blue curacao and all those other things. I think blue drinks also need to die. Mm-hmm. There's just no reason for them to exist.
I just saw an announcement just this past week for a blue Amaro that is going to be coming out of New York. I'll reserve judgment on it until you actually try it, but it's blue, and that's the main selling point.
All right, well, let's move to a more positive, upbeat topic, which is what would be your drink if you... I don't even know the right way to say this. Do you say a desert island or a deserted island? Let's clear this up right away. Do we say desert island?
Yeah,
okay.
desert island.
Desert island. Okay, Molly, tell me.
I couldn't choose just one.
Okay.
So I chose them in different categories. So in terms of alcohol, I would really want Campari there with me.
Yeah.
Because it's going to go well with one of my other desert island drinks, which is just plain sparkling water I feel like sparkling water will never die. Unlike LaCroix, plain old sparkling water is a timeless joy to behold. Anyway, and I just think Campari is this perfect blend of sweetness and bitterness. And of course, delicious in the classic aperitif or aperitivo Campari and soda, which I could achieve with my sparkling water. And then black coffee. I just feel like I wake up every morning like excited, genuinely excited for a cup of black coffee. It's like, just like the little reliable pleasures. I feel like a cup of black coffee that is well done is so perfect.
Very sophisticated.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh. How about you, Matthew?
Well, as much as I would be definitely thinking about the aperitivo situation when I'm
Shut
stranded
up,
on this
Matthew.
island.
Matthew.
Okay, but I am the most boring person in the world, and the reason is, many reasons, but the reason for now is because I love ice water, and ice water is my desert island drink.
It's very smart, functionally.
Okay, so not just that, but I did not realize until a couple of years ago the extent to which ice water, as opposed to just water, is like an American affectation, because I spent a few days in Hong Kong, and they just don't drink super cold water in Hong Kong or in a lot of other places. But I would go into the convenience store and say, okay, I got to get a bottle of ice cold water, and the cold water from the cold case would be 48 degrees, and I was like, damn it, again. And I was getting plenty to drink, but after a couple of days, I was losing my mind.
Did you carry around a thermometer to measure the temperature? How'd you know that it was 40-something
Sure,
degrees?
I always have my Thermapen with me at all times, just because I gotta know.
No, that's a good point, because when you go to Europe, all the bottled water it's not chilled. It's
I
room
cannot
temp.
handle this.
Wait, do you drink ice water even in the winter?
Yes.
Wow, I almost never want ice. Almost never.
I think that's supposed to be bad
I
for
feel
you.
a need to endorse this. This is my approach to life as well. I have ice in my water at all times. Even if it's the middle of January and it's 15 degrees outside, I have to have ice in my water. And if I'm traveling and I don't have access to really cold water, ice water, I become dehydrated. I just don't drink enough because it's so unappealing.
Is it that when water is that cold, you can't taste what makes it taste like water?
It may be part of that, but it's also like a sensory thing. It just feels good.
Yeah.
I really enjoy, if there's a nice cold bottle of water and if I'm feeling a little thirsty, you can just chug that. And it just feels so good.
This is a conversation I have a lot with food and beverages. People forget about the sensory aspect, which is so important. You need to have texture. You need to have some sort of experience when you're eating or drinking something.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All
Yeah,
right.
my 100-year-old grandmother, the one who's into Tab, also, I grew up watching her always put ice cube after ice cube into her white wine. I'm not with her on that, but it was pretty funny to watch.
I actually do that.
Awesome.
In August. So I'm a wine writer. That's my other job. My feeling is if you have a bottle open and it's 90 degrees out and it's been open since yesterday, it's fine with me if you put an ice cube in it.
Okay.
There, I've said it. All right,
Good,
Paul.
because secretly I did want to do it.
Paul, we need to hear from you.
I recently changed my approach to desert island beverages. I long thought, well, you're on a desert island, you drink rum, duh. All you need is like a coconut tree or something, knock the top off, pour the
Wait, are
rum
we
in,
talking
and
about a
you're ready
literal
to go.
desert island?
Yeah, of course. I'm taking...
I change my black
You
coffee.
can hang out with your Campari and soda. I will have my rum and coconut water and hopefully a glass of ice water because I'm on board with you on that and be ready to go. But like I said, I have recently changed my approach to this, thinking that really, you know what I would want? Completely removed from civilization is a touch of civilization. And for me, that means brandy. So cognac, Armagnac, good California brandy, whatever it is, it's that, brandy has that kind of link to a higher worldview, to the best that humans and nature can bring forth together. And so when you're on that desert island and I'm, gnawing on my fish carcass, my seagull legs, and whatever you have to do to survive there, a little bit of brandy will help you keep sane.
Like that. I love brandy. I love cognac.
Yeah.
You're making me thirsty, even though I've already got my rosé here. Well, of course, rosé would be one of my desert island drinks. Also, Blanc de Blanc grower champagne, which is a champagne from a small producer that's made from Chardonnay grapes. And then coconut water. I mean, right, Paul? I mean, you've got the coconuts there already.
And it's a desert island, yeah.
But I do think I'm really into soothing beverages right now, like coconut water, aloe juice. I know it's kind of a trend; it'll probably die, but it's very soothing, and I feel like the world is not a soothing place right now. So we just need to put soothing things into our body. So I like coconut water and aloe juice. Just relax everything. It's like putting lotion inside your intestines, which sounds really gross, but it makes you feel good.
Where do you stand on the ice water thing? Because I feel like if you chased your lotion with ice water, it would be very slippery.
I don't agree with you on the ice water. I feel like it needs to be room temperature.
Oh wow! So we have a real divide, like right here, down the center of the table.
Yeah.
Right there with you, sister.
Well, I don't want to get the shivers from hydrating. I don't know.
I never get the shivers from drinking ice water.
I just get pure satisfaction.
Yes.
All right. Any more desert island drinks you guys want to mention? No? All right. Well, it's time to move on to our dessert course. And this is the part of the show where we all just share something that is vaguely related to food and beverage that we've been enjoying this week, and we just want to recommend to our audience. So how about I start with you, Paul? Do you have a dessert for us?
Yeah, there is no way to say this that does not come across as obnoxious, but I just got back from a week in France, and I noticed drinking there, and kind of missing the whole idea of the digestif, of the final thing at the end of the meal, just a little bit of something, whether it's brandy or port or an amaro or what have you, but something that kind of marks that closure of the meal, that kind of performs the function of the aperitif. The aperitif kind of divides the rigors of your workday from the pleasures of the meal that's to come. You kind of need the digestif to kind of change channels. Like, we've had the meal, we've enjoyed each other's company. Here's a last 10 minutes or so that we're going to be together. This is the transitional moment. Now we're going to go off, go home, go out, do whatever comes next. But this is the change. And that's one thing I kind of miss, and I kind of look forward to. It still exists, and you still see people in the food and beverage industry will do it on occasion, but often we're the only ones in the restaurant doing that. Mm-hmm. You'll see the grappa list with the dust on the bottles, and so I that's one thing I do kind of miss, and I kind of hope comes back.
For sure, I agree. How about you, Matthew?
The other day, I read this new novel, new in translation in English, by Hiromi Kawakami, called The Nakano Thrift Shop. And it is a real kind of slice of life Japanese novel. And something I've noticed is that when you read novels by American authors, they often will talk about characters eating and not say what they're eating. And as a food writer, this drives me nuts. In Japanese novels, they pretty much always say exactly what the people are eating. And so there is a scene in this book where the staff at this thrift shop have sent out for katsudon, which is a fried pork cutlet on rice, which with sauce with like soy sauce and sugar and like barely cooked egg, scrambled egg. And they're all sitting around around the space heater, eating this katsudon and talking about how they all agree that the katsudon from the soba shop is tastier than the katsudon from the pork cutlet shop, and isn't this odd? And I thought, wow, this book really gets me.
There's a Japanese comic book series called The Drops of God that's all about wine, and I love how detailed and dialed in it is about the differences between flavor. I feel like there's something about the Japanese culture, they understand flavor better than we do. I want to check this book out. Thanks.
Yeah.
Molly, what do you have for us?
Mine is an actual dessert.
Oh.
So I really love ice cream sandwiches, like the kind that like some brands come like wrapped in like white wax paper, and it's like really hard to tear it off neatly, and they melt really fast, especially if you're like eating them by the pool when you're a kid. Anyway, so my favorite, I have eaten many different brands of ice cream sandwich in pursuit of my perfect ice cream sandwich. And I'm currently really into this brand. The company's called Julie's. I think it's Julie's Organic or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, the ice cream part of it tastes really good. Like tastes better than like the average one that I would get from like the ice cream truck, and that I still get from the ice cream truck whenever I hear the ice cream truck. But anyway, the ice cream is really good, and it's like if you can be patient enough to wait until it softens a little bit, you can do that thing where you like lick along the side of it, you know? Oh my God. And then anyway, and the chocolate like cookie wafer things, they get like perfectly spongy and they like just start to stick to your fingers a little bit, by the end, by the last bite. Anyway, it's the best. And I always keep them in my freezer.
I love that stick to your fingers thing. Then you have to like...
Molly wins the dessert course, I think.
Yeah. Well, my dessert, I need to send out a thank you to my mom and dad who are here today. Thanks for being here. And they are big foodies and drinkers and probably trained me in everything I know. And thinking about our topics today, the other night we were drinking Kongsgaard Chardonnay, and a drink that died that I think needs to come back is I think we need to kind of open our mind to old school Napa Valley Chardonnay. I know I'm like probably someone's going to shoot me for saying that, but this wine, Kongsgaard, such a classic and made so carefully. So I think we just need to open our minds a little bit in regards to all beverages, but wine in particular. I hear so many people say, oh, I won't drink that because it's sweet, or I won't drink that because it has barrel on it, or the aroma of barrels. I like to just taste everything, and I think it's fun to go back and taste something that's kind of out of vogue, and just have an open mind. And yeah, so I'm going to recommend old school Napa Valley Chardonnay. Give it a shot.
Catherine, you're a woman after my own heart in the sense that I love how you said you were afraid someone was going to shoot you for your opinion on Napa Valley Chardonnay, that this was like the most controversial thing you could possibly say. Because I have had these moments in my writing career. I wrote a personal finance column for several years, and one time I wrote a column and I was like, wow, this is so controversial what I'm saying here. Like, I don't even know if they're going to let me publish this. I don't know if I can handle the blowback from it. It was a column about treasury bonds.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, being in media, you get hate mail, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get any over this treasury bonds thing, but yeah.
It's surprising the stuff we hear from listeners and readers. Yeah? Paul, you know what I'm talking
absolutely. It's usually you don't hear from readers until you've done something that they think is wrong. People who love it don't say anything, but it's only if you've crossed the boundary, if you've said, Napa Valley Chardonnay, we need to get that you'll hear back from people.
Yeah. Oops. A special thanks to our panelists today, Molly Wizenberg and Matthew Amster-Burton of the Spilled Milk podcast. Thanks for being here. Yay. And Paul Clarke, executive editor of Imbibe magazine. Such a pleasure to have you. Today's episode was recorded in Seattle, Washington at PodCon in front of a live studio audience. Yay! Thank you, you guys. Thank you all for being here. Special thanks to the sound team here at PodCon, as well as our producer, Alex Ward. Our theme music was performed by the incomparable wine importer Kermit Lynch, and you can read all about the Foretop on the OPB website. That is the website of our home station, Oregon Public Broadcasting in Portland, Oregon. And you can hear us on NPR One. If you like our James Beard Award-winning show, please help us out. Rate us on iTunes. Subscribe to the Foretop on your favorite podcast app. And please, please tell your friends about us. You can tweet us at @4top, all one word, or visit our Facebook page and post your thoughts about the show. We would love to hear from you. Bye-bye now.
Nuit blanche, nuit blanche, nuit blanche.